Hey everyone, happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for tuning in with me in this moment. I really appreciate it. No, but really, thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for turning up the volume on this video and checking it out. It won't be a super long video. I really just wanted to share something that I am currently kind of like sifting my way through. Very gratefully sifting my way through this and kind of like releasing myself from a certain mindset and attitude that has been following me around for years. And I would say that I say that it's been following me around for years, and it has been, right? And over the last few years, I've been more aware of it and still having to really, whenever we become conditioned to living with a certain mindset or attitude, it just becomes hard to let go of it. And so I feel like I'm in the final stages, if you would, whenever it comes to releasing myself from this way of being. And so I've been reading and just kind of like meditating, and I went to the park today and I was reading something and journaling. And so I want to talk about this idea of detachment versus despondent. Okay, so being detached versus being despondent. And so for me, a few years ago, one of the words that I began to really use in my vocabulary was detached. I feel detached. But what I really meant and what I really felt was this idea of despondence. I felt despondent. Right? I wasn't necessarily, and my despondence caused me to detach myself emotionally, right? And mentally. And so there's this healthy form, there's a healthy way to be detached, right? We should practice detachment. But there's a healthy way to do it. So for me, I was more on the despondent side than I was detached, but this word detached just kept coming up. And so as I'm like reflecting and looking back over that time, I'm like, I was sitting at the park and I'm like, what's another word for this? And it's like despondent. So I was despondent. And what does that mean? Despondent just really means hopelessness, right? It means you're walking around with this detached, but emotionally, mentally detached attitude and mindset, and you're just hopeless, right? That woe is me mindset. And so that victim mentality and mindset. And so I feel like I'm just kind of like letting go the rest of those remnants, right? Just getting all that off of me. And so I really want to talk about this idea and not even talk about, but I want to share some of the things that I wrote down. I wrote down 7 things for each side. And so I'm going to start with despondent and then I'll go over to detached. But I really want to just share what that despondence looked like for me. And it may have looked like, or it may look like that for you as well, because many of us, most people have gone through trauma, right? Most people have experienced some type of trauma, whether it was directly or indirectly. We've all experienced trauma. And so what does trauma do to us? It causes us to live in fear, right? It causes us to live in survival mode. I wrote a blog post on survival mode last year about how I'm really coming out of that. And I may post it again to my story, but trauma causes us to live in fear. It causes us to live in survival mode. It causes us to lose hope, right? Despondent means hopeless. It's this hopeless mindset and attitude. And so many of us have been there, right? Many of us have gone through this feeling of despondence. And maybe we didn't have a word to describe it. I know I really didn't. I was using the word detached to describe it, but really I wasn't necessarily. The despondence, like I said, led to me being detached, but in an unhealthy manner, right? Emotionally and mentally, I had detached myself from the world around me because I thought that's how I had to get through it. To avoid hurt and pain and more trauma, you detach yourself emotionally and mentally. But no, what actually happens is you create more pain and you create more trauma, whether for yourself or for others. And so, yeah, first of all, I'm really grateful, right? I'm grateful to me, okay? I'm grateful to me, to Macy LaShawn Sledge, for recognizing and for having the awareness and for being open to recognize, oh, okay, I wasn't really I wasn't really living detached. I was more so living with this hopeless mindset and attitude, right? So I'm going to share and just go through my list what came up. And if you can relate, if it resonates with you, please let me know in the comments. Y'all know I like to have a good conversation, okay? But the first thing that came up is when you are living with this despondent attitude and mindset, your faith is rocky and it's pretty much non-existent. You don't have faith in yourself, and I didn't have any faith in myself, right? So whenever I'm really deep in this despondence and my despondence, I wasn't doing this. I wasn't sharing. I wasn't really creating. I was maybe I was trying to force things to happen. But I wasn't really doing this because I didn't have faith in myself. I wasn't really making the connections. I wasn't really making the kind of connections that I'm making now with other people because I didn't have faith in other people. I didn't have faith in the world around me. I didn't have faith in the good that existed within me. I didn't have faith. I just lacked faith. I didn't have any faith in myself. I didn't believe in myself. And so you may be able to relate. You may have lived in this despondent mindset and attitude or lived with it, and you may be able to look back and you may be able to say, yeah, I really didn't have faith either in myself whenever I was living like that. But when you are practicing healthy detachment, and detachment meaning you're not attached to this temporary experience, right? Because we gain material things, we get into relationships, and we become attached to the people. We become attached to, that's mine, that belongs to me, that person belongs to me. That's one of my biggest things is because of trauma and because of just experience with it, feeling abandoned and rejected by some of the people most important to me in my past as a child, I hold on to people. I become attached to people, and I try to control. I tried because I'm overcoming this, right? So I would try to control other people in a way that would keep them here with me. You know what I'm saying? And so, in my despondence, right? But when I become detached, healthy detachment looks like, you know what? You are you, I am me, you have your experience, I have my experience. I don't control you, I only control me, right? And so I know that all of this whole experience of being here physically, this tangible experience, it's temporary. So let me go beyond this and let me connect with you on a soul level. And if you ever leave my experience, if my car ever leaves my experience, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's going to be okay. I'm not going to necessarily mourn in a way that causes me to lose hope. I'm going to mourn in a way that's like, okay, I have to move on. You know what I'm saying? So healthy detachment. So when you are practicing healthy detachment, your faith is what guides you to make decisions and take steps that put you into alignment with your heart's desires. Now, you are not attached to the outcome, but your faith, when you're practicing detachment, your faith causes you to take steps and make decisions that put you into alignment with your heart's desires. Now, your heart's desires belong to you, right? But you don't necessarily get caught up in the path that gets you there. You don't necessarily get caught up in the outcome. You're focusing and present for the process. Number 2, when you are living with this despondent mindset and attitude, you don't trust yourself and you don't trust the people around you. Point blank, period. You get an idea, you receive a vision from your imagination. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Why? Because you don't trust yourself to do it. You don't trust yourself to do it. And then when you stop trusting yourself, what happens? Then it doesn't happen, and then your life doesn't necessarily look like how you desire it to look like, and then you fall into that hopeless, right? Then you fall back into that hopelessness. But when you are living detached, you trust yourself and you trust that God will place people on your path whose only aim is to empower and uplift your mind, body, and soul as they are doing that for themselves. Number 3, when you are living with this despondent attitude and mindset, you live in a constant state of woe is me. I was there. You know, you live with that victim mentality when you're stuck in your despondence. When you're stuck in that feeling of hopelessness, you live with that woe is me attitude. But when you are living from a place of healthy detachment, you live with a warrior's mindset. And you are no longer a victim to your past. You detach yourself from the past, and you even detach yourself from the future, because sometimes we get so caught up in the future, right? Is this person going to be there with me? Is my house going to be there with me in 5 years? You know, we get so attached to that, whatever it is. Am I going to have this job in 5 years? We get so attached or so focused on the future and so attached to trying to figure out the future, right, that we fall into that victim mentality. We make ourselves victims of the past, we make ourselves victims of the future, and then we're just lost. And then we fall back into that hopelessness. We gotta get out of it. Okay, so number 4, you live in a constant state of fear when you are living with that despondent attitude and mindset. That's self-explanatory. You fear, you walk around, there's a dark alley, you're afraid. Whatever it is, you fear people's judgments and opinions about you. You are afraid to be yourself because you're fearful of what other people might think of you, right? There's all kinds of levels to that fear. But when you're living with a healthy form of detachment, you feel the fear and you live anyway. Okay. Number 5, when you are living with this despondent attitude and mindset, you allow hopelessness to keep you stagnant and in a state of mediocrity. But when you are living with this healthy detachment, you place your hope and your belief in your creative power. And then you go back to number 1, which was your faith, and you allow your faith to encourage you to make the steps that are necessary for you to express your creative power, okay? Number 6, when you're living with this despondent attitude, it's hard for you to believe in your goodness and in the goodness of others. But when you detach yourself from the past, right, and you're no longer a victim of the past and you're practicing healthy detachment, you honor your light and your darkness, and you also honor the light and darkness in others by practicing grace, compassion, and unconditional love. Number 7, when you are living with this despondence, this hopelessness attitude and mindset, you allow the stories of the past to dictate how you interact with yourself and with the world around you, right? You're afraid of everybody. You count everybody. You cancel everybody. You haven't even really given them a chance, but you've canceled them already because I'm afraid of people, or I just don't trust people. Back to number 2, you know? But when you're living with this healthy form of detachment, you interact with the world from a space of peacefulness and empathy. Your soul, your spirit, your heart is at peace. And so then you allow yourself to interact with the world from that space because you know that you are responsible. You are responsible for establishing this peace, for connecting with the peace that's within you. So then you're no longer afraid to interact with the world. You're no longer afraid to go out into the world and live your life because you have established a peace that surpasses all understanding within you. And because you've allowed yourself to connect with that. And because you've given yourself the time and the space to really ground into that. So those are the 7 things that came up, right? And like I was saying, it's coming up from just how I expressed this attitude and mindset of despondence. Maybe you can relate. Maybe you have other ways that, you know, you can add to the comments and say, you know what? When I was living in my hopelessness, this is how I expressed it. Feel free to share. Like I said, y'all know that I love the chats and the conversation. I think it's good because it allows us to learn from each other, which is what this platform is all about, right? I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. I'm here to share mine. I'm here to share my experience, my stories, so that you can learn from me. And then I enjoy you communicating with me because then I can learn from you. So if it did resonate with you, of course, let me know in the comments. A book that talks about, and it's only 1 chapter, but a book that talks about this idea of detachment is the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra. Is that how you say his name? Okay, so my leg just fell asleep. You know that pain when your leg falls asleep? Yeah, I'm feeling that. And that's a really good book. And maybe I'll read that chapter and share it. But anyway, I hope that this was helpful. And I hope that I know it made sense because I know. But just, let me know if it resonated. Let me know how it aligns with where you are or where you're coming from, right? Because we're all seeking to grow and evolve and transform and heal, and none of us are the same person that we were yesterday. We're all becoming and stepping into and grounding into our true selves. So I love you all so much. That's all I have for today. I hope that this was encouraging for you. If not, it's okay, Share it with somebody if it was. I love y'all.